Hello, Dr. J. It's Max Hall with your video practicum wrap-up questionnaire. So I hope you enjoy it. And 2012, fall to 2012. So here we go.
Tell me about your lesson plan and its format.
My lesson plan was aligned to the Common Core standards, and I had 7 basic steps that I followed in my lesson plan. And started out with a title, and then proceeded to list the Common Core standards that I was aligning my lesson to, and then I had an objective which would state the purpose. Well, it didn't really state the purpose, but the objective was what I was hoping to gain by the end of the lesson. And then I had a purpose for the lesson, which was to get the students to learn enough from me to perform the objective. And I had input in modeling in the lesson where I gave them information and I would show it. We did kind of a group dance, and I had a life-size skeleton that I used to display information as to be an image for them to relate to, and I had definitions and stuff that I would put on the board next to the skeleton. I also did I had focus questions that I asked the students and kind of got the ball rolling and introduced the topic. And then I also did an assessment where I handed everybody index cards that had 2 images, one image on one side and one on the other side, and I would ask follow-up questions after the lesson, and then they would have to answer either yes or no, true or false, by showing me one side or other of the card. And by doing that, it showed me if they understood what I was teaching them, and then if they didn't, a majority of them didn't, then I knew I'd have to go back and reteach to make sure that I was getting the information across.
How effective do you think your lesson was?
Overall, I think my lesson was pretty effective. I seemed to retain most of the students' attention during the lesson. I think I was engaging with my YouTube dance that I did. The video didn't play entirely, so I kind of wasn't expecting that to happen, but I asked them to just I improvised. I kind of did finish the dance on my own and had them follow along, and it was fun. We did a game of Simon Says, which made this, it showed me that the students knew where the body parts were that I was asking them to locate, and overall, I think it went really well. They seemed to do a good job with their hands-on activity that they did, and there were a few hiccups, but I think every lesson has that.
How did you engage every student?
I believe I engaged every student pretty well. I gave good eye contact. I spoke, loudly and clearly. I made sure when I addressed the children, I tried to ask questions and choose different students. And then when they went to their activity at their desks, I went around the classroom and I spoke to every student. I made sure that each one of them understood what was going on, and I helped them if they had questions. During the direct lesson, I did different activities, like I said, the dance and the Simon Says, and then we did the assessment questions, which I thought engaged. And I also had something I passed around the group for them to look at closer, a miniature skeleton, to have them have a closer look at some of the bones in our body that we were learning about.
How would you interact with groups?
Well, I would place the students in groups that I thought would get the most effective results. I wouldn't want to put all the friends together or anything. I would put them in groups that were going to get the job done and have the less trouble. And then I would know which students had which strengths and make sure those were with maybe some of the other students that maybe struggled in that subject, and so that I knew they could assist those students, and then I would work with the other students that were maybe struggling a little bit in other groups and just try and make myself as accessible as I can to the groups. And if everybody seemed to be having a hard time or have the same question, I would probably stop in the middle of the activity and maybe do a 5-minute reteaching lesson.
How would you incorporate your objection into your lesson?
I think I would, try to do it in different ways and come at it at different angles. I would try and, um, teach it verbally, show it. They can see it physically. I would have them get up and try and perform it somehow, and so that no matter what subject it is, you could probably still add a physical aspect to it, and just make sure that it's being taught in different ways, but it's not the same information going at them, just in a different, not doing it all the same way. Like I would say this A, say this, do this B, act out this C, look at this D, but it's all coming together as the objective. It's just a different way of saying it.
How do you align this to your Common Core standards?
I would align my objective to the Common Core standards by first looking at what I want to complete and what needs to be done. Look at what the Common Core standards are for what I'm teaching, and then think of a way to kind of bring the two together, to juxtapose the two so that they're working as one. And just no matter what the Common Core standard is, there's a way to align your objective to it. So you just have to get creative and make it happen.
What was your key vocabulary?
My key vocabulary for this lesson were skeleton, because this was a kindergarten class. I didn't know if too many of them would know maybe what skeleton was. I mean, we just had Halloween, so it's possible, but to actually know the definition of what the skeleton is. Also, I called them my junior orthopedic surgeons, and they may know what a surgeon is, but I knew they didn't know what orthopedic was. So I definitely used those three terms and defined them and made them understand, just broke it down to their level of understanding.
So how did you teach your key vocabulary?
I taught my key vocabulary by using my large visual that I had, the skeleton, a full life-size skeleton, up on the board, and I had the name of the term I was using, like skeleton, and I clipped that to the board, and then I had the definition underneath it, so they were there next to what I was using, like the skeleton. I had the orthopedic and I had the surgeon, and I kept referring to them on the board and pointing to them. Every time I would say that, I would point and reiterate, okay, this is what a surgeon is, this is what orthopedic means, or this is what a skeleton is.
How did your input and modeling prepare your students to do the objective?
I think my input and modeling helped them because the way I reiterated the skeleton and the body parts and the bone names and their location by doing the focus questions, by doing the um, assessments, by doing the anticipatory set activity, which was the video dance, and by doing the direct lesson, which was the Simon Says. Everything doing that just kept reiterating the skull, the leg, the foot, the pelvis, the backbone. All that kept being reiterated and in different ways. So I think that really helped with their um, activity that they did at receipt.
How has this experience helped you realize how outside influences may affect your students?
Um, it really did kind of going to that school and being in that classroom really kind of opened my eyes to that the whole world isn't sunshine and rainbows, and that there are kids that struggle, and that every kid has a different situation, and that coming to school needs to be their one constant, at least one constant in their life, where the teacher is always on point and always there and always in a good mood and is doing what they need to do to prepare them to succeed and to get to the next level. And the teacher needs to show that they care and needs to show that they can be trusted. And I don't know, I grew up in a small town that I was very naive to things even after I graduated high school. I was very naive to a lot of things, and to know that people have these struggles and deal with these things on a regular basis, it's kind of shocking to me, and but they get through it. And I just know that going home and not having a meal, or going home to only one parent at home, or going to home and not having any parents, being in a foster situation, or who knows what, can affect a child. And I know that I want to be the teacher that they know they can come to and trust and rely on.
How do you feel? I'm sorry. How do you then feel you have created a student-centered feeling?
Um, well, I guess I feel that I just know that even when I'm not at school, I'm going to be thinking about and just thinking about ways to how to help my kids. And I'm going to be, when I'm in class, I'm going to be on. And I'm not going to let my personal life or anything else that's going on in my life affect me in the classroom. I could be going through personal things that, who knows what, but I'm not going to let it affect my teaching or affect my interaction with my students, because they are the reason I'm there, and they deserve to have a teacher that's on all the time and with the program, not a sometimer.
What went well with your lesson and why?
Um, I think a lot of it went well. I, I guess the best part was when when the video kind of just stopped and all the kids looked at me like, uh-oh, and I didn't really let it get to me. I didn't really let it bother me. I just went to plan B, immediately went to plan B, and I just like, okay, let's continue, let's just roll with it. And they were receptive. They just followed right along and kept on going, and they didn't let the fact that the video stopped playing bother them at all. And I think that was great. I think the whole lesson went really well.
What is something that can happen unexpectedly during your lesson?
Well, like the video unexpectedly could stop playing. But I think with students, because we don't know their situation at home, or we may know their situation at home. I think they could have, who knows what could have happened, and that could be causing them to kind of shut down inside and not want to participate. Um, So I don't know. What's the question again?
What is something that could happen unexpectedly during your lesson?
I guess just student breaking down and maybe getting upset or not wanting to participate and refusing to participate, having to use the bathroom, saying that they don't feel well. I just kind of gotta let all that roll and just not let it interrupt what I'm doing. If a student has to use the bathroom, I'll dismiss them and let them go quietly to the bathroom. They're not to interrupt what's going on. If they don't feel like participating and they're sick and they don't feel well, they need to sit with their head down and not interrupt. I'll deal with it when we get a break in where we're at, but I can't stop what I'm doing just to focus on a student may be crying wolf, may be something else. I don't know, but I don't want to dismiss that student completely, but I don't want to take away from the rest of the kids in the class either.
How did creating this lesson help create an exclusive environment considering your modifications and accommodations?
One more time.
How did creating this lesson help create an exclusive environment considering your modifications and accommodations?
Well, I took in consideration that I may have a student with Asperger's in my classroom. And so I decided that I would modify my lesson to be interactive and to use things that would trigger someone with Asperger's to want to participate or pay attention to. Since Asperger's children or people don't respond well to change, they like things cut and dry, normal, same day, in and out. So if I'm coming into the classroom in a costume to prepare for a new lesson and they don't expect that to happen, I know I have to prepare them and tell them ahead of time, I'm coming in on Friday, and then on Tuesday, I'm coming in on Friday, and continue up until Friday telling them, I'm coming in dressed as, or I'm going to be doing this, we're going to be doing this, so that it's not just something new the day of, because that will throw them off and they won't want to participate.
How has this experience helped you find yourself as an educator?
It kind of it changed me because before Edgemont, I didn't want anything to do with kindergartners. I didn't think I wanted anything to do with first graders or second graders. I wanted third through fifth. That's what I wanted. After the first day of being in the kindergarten class, I was totally hooked. I loved those kids. They were great. And I am thrilled to have been in that class. I'm thankful that I was placed in that class because it's totally made me want to be a kindergarten teacher. And just the joy and innocence of those kids and everything about them, I just think it's great. So I'm thankful that I was placed in that class because if I hadn't been, I may totally have been still thinking I don't want kindergartners, which I am now in love with. So.
That's it.
Oh, that was it.
That was it. I read through all your questions.
Alright, I guess that was. I thought I had more questions, so I hope you found this to be insightful and educating, and I hope it helps. And thanks. Love you, Dr. J. Check it out.